Good morning, good afternoon, or indeed good evening, depending on where you are in the world. We hope you are all well. My name is Nikki from Rockjumper Birding Tours Mauritius, hosting today's webinar together with my co-host Keith Valentine from Rockjumper Birding South Africa. We wish you all a warm welcome, and we're delighted to see so many of you joining us from around the world. Today promises to be an exceptional virtual tour discovering the wonders and marvels of the Galapagos Islands. If you're new to Zoom, please feel free to use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen to ask questions, and we will endeavor to answer as many as we can at the end of the webinar. Our speaker today is Dušan Brinkhuizen, a biologist specializing in avian research and a full-time Rockjumper tour leader. Dušan's activities, apart from leading bird-watching tours, include scientific research, bird sound recording, writing, and bird photography. We are in for a treat as Dušan is busy putting the finishing touches to a brand new field guide called Birds and Mammals of Galapagos, a groundbreaking effort that we are all extremely excited to see, and of which we are so proud of you, Dušan. Dušan has spent 15 years living in Ecuador and boasts a species list of 1,555 from the country. There is no better tour leader for our virtual tour today. Welcome, Dušan. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Nikki, for this wonderful introduction and kind words, and Keith as well. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everybody. Thanks for tuning in on this Rockjumper tour. Finally, we're going on a trip again. We're going to the magic Galapagos Islands, and I'm so happy to be here, and indeed sit back and relax. Let's go to the Galapagos. Let's see, there we go. Yes, here is the map of South America, because of course the first question is, where is the Galapagos? Well, the Galapagos is found in the eastern tropical Pacific Ocean, just west of the country, Ecuador. And you can see right here is the inset. And let's zoom in and let's have a closer look. So this is the map zoomed in, and you see the mainland Ecuador on the right, Galapagos on the left. And here in orange, you can see Ecuador. And I've been living in Ecuador now almost for 15 years, and it's an amazing country. It's to me, the best bird watching country in the world. And that's because it's mega diverse, and it has the Galapagos as well. So one of the reasons for this mega diversity is the Equator Line. As you can see, both the Galapagos and Ecuador itself, they straddle the equator, and this adds to that tropical biodiversity. And Ecuador is typically divided in 4 major regions. Let's start in the east. In the east here, the green area that you see, that's the Amazon basin. Then we have the high Andes, the yellow area. And then we have on the west side, the Western Pacific lowlands, a region also known as the Chocó. And then the 4th region is the Galapagos. So we do birding trips to all these regions. And as you can see, if you really want to get to know Ecuador, you need to do at least 4 trips to all these different regions. We also have a mega tour combining all these regions. And typically we do Galapagos at the end. And Galapagos is the cherry on the cake, as they say. And today we're just going to eat the cherry off the cake. And yeah, to indicate the mega diversity of Ecuador itself, this is a tiny country in comparison to, for example, Colombia or Brazil, but it almost has the same amount of bird species. So to date, till July, 1,718 species of birds have been recorded in Ecuador. And that is just mind-blowing number. So it is, honestly, it's the most mega diverse country on the planet. And the Galapagos itself, as you can see, has got fewer species, only 65 resident breeders. However, 33 of these are endemic. So that's 50%, which is a very high level of endemism. So that makes Galapagos really, really a great birding spot. And let's go there. So here, a map of the Galapagos closer up. This map has been made by Anna Motis of the Links team. This map will also be used in the new field guide. Thank you, Anna, for this beautiful map. I'll use this map throughout the presentation, throughout the tour, as we go from spot to spot. But before we start the tour, a quick intro about the origin of the Galapagos. What makes the Galapagos so unique? It's the fact that the Galapagos Archipelago is fairly young and it has not been attached to any continental landmass. Actually, it was created by a volcanic hotspot, and the idea behind this theory, I've got a little schematic representation here. The idea is that you've got the Earth's magma and there's a fixed hotspot. And the Galapagos lies on a tectonic plate. In this case, it's the Nazca plate. And that eastern tectonic plate movement over a fixed hotspot is what slowly created these volcanic islands. And as a result of this hotspot, you can see that the westernmost island, in this case Fernandina, is also the youngest one. It's an estimated 500,000 years old. Whereas the easternmost islands, San Cristobal and Española, they are much older and they're about 4 million years old. Okay, so here we've got a brown pelican. This is to illustrate that actually every single bird on Galapagos is special. You know, the brown pelican is a common and widespread species, but in this case, it's an endemic subspecies. And I've investigated and I've tried to find out why Wetmore named this particular race the urinator, and till today, I haven't been able to find out why he named it, why he gave it this interesting name. So if you know, please let me know later on. Well, in the background, you see a cruise ship. This is a pretty big cruise ship. I've not been on such a big boat, but a cruise ship is definitely one of the ways to travel the archipelago. And the other way is what they call island hopping, which is a land-based tour. So we offer both boat type of trips. We've got Rockjumper cruises to the Galapagos, but we also have island hopping itineraries. And if you ask me which of the two is best or which of the two is nicest, for me it's very difficult to actually give that answer, because both type of tours have their advantages and disadvantages. So I'll give you some information about both of these types of tours, and then you can make up your mind yourself what might be best for you. So let's have a look. Here we start with the cruise. In this case, this is a smaller cruise ship. It holds about 14 people, 14 packs. And on a cruise, what you do is you sleep, eat, and live for, let's say, 7, 8, or 10 days on such a boat. And it's actually very comfortable. It looks a small boat, but it's really comfortable. And with this boat, you travel from island to island, and often you even navigate at night. So then you wake up suddenly on a different island the next day. That's a big advantage. And then you have these smaller boats. In this case, they call it locally pangas. And the day excursions, that's a panga ride. So you jump in these small dinghies, and you either make a wet landing or a dry landing, and you make excursions. And then once your excursion is over, you get back to your boat and you go on to the next spot. So that's the way a cruise works. And one of the other advantages is you get to see amazing landscapes throughout the tour and sunsets. And as you can see, often you sleep in a calm bay, and there will be some other cruises as well. And yeah, the cruise is great. And perhaps the biggest advantage of a cruise is that you wake up right on the hot spot, right on the birding spot. You wake up, and in this case, this is on the background, the island Genovesa, and that's an important island. And Genovesa is one of the few islands that, to date, you can't visit doing a land-based tour. So actually, the only way to get to this island is to take a cruise. Then we get to the other type of tour, which is the land-based tour. And as you can see here, obviously, one of the big advantages is that you sleep on land. Every day you sleep in a hotel, and there's a wide range of different hotels. You can have very luxurious hotels. You can have basic hotels or hostels. They're perfectly fine as well. And you sleep on land. You don't need to sleep on a boat. That's a big advantage. And actually, another advantage is the personal downtime. On a land-based tour, you've got a little bit more freedom. If there's an excursion that you don't want to join, you can just stay in town, walk around yourself, explore a little bit. Because whereas if you're on a cruise, you can get downtime, but that's kind of strictly only in your own little cabin, because anywhere else that you go, you'll be with other people. So if you really need downtime, then a land-based tour is an option. And of course, in town, you can do some relaxing. This is a classic Galapagos picture. No, it is not staged. This is a live animal. This is a Galapagos sea lion. Conservamos lo nuestro. We conserve ours. Galapagos it's all about conservation. So if you do a trip to the Galapagos, this is what you help. You immediately help the conservation of so many beautiful animals. So a land-based trip, does that mean that you're not on a boat? No, that's not true. On a land-based trip, you do island hopping, and you do take transport between islands. And in many cases, it's a small speedboat like this. And depending on the water conditions, of course, you can have some rough seas, so it can be a pretty rough trip. But typically, these are shorter boat trips, let's say of 2 to 3 hours max, depending on your route. And here, this is Rachel and Joseph relaxing, chilling on the deck. This is actually a land-based tour, but this photo is just to illustrate that even on a land-based tour, you do get that cruise feeling, as you can see, the landscapes and the chilling on the deck. So, you know, boat tours just offer an amazing experience, and they overlap in so many things. Okay, so this was a short introduction to Galapagos and to our 2 types of tours. Let's now actually get in the airplane and go to Galapagos with me, and let's start birding. So we start here right at the red dot. That's Baltra. That's where the airport is. And when you fly in, this is how it looks like. So you can actually on the photo, you can see the airstrip. And while you land, this is how Baltra looks like. And then as soon as you arrive and you get out of the airport, the birding already starts. And if you're lucky, you get to see this beauty. This is the Galapagos Dove. It's one of my favorite endemics. And they walk around the airport. Yeah, beautiful markings on the upper parts, black and white, and that nice blue eye ring. And yeah. Also outside of the airport is where the trouble starts, let's say. Why do I say trouble? Well, this is a Darwin's finch, in this case a small ground finch. The photo was actually taken at the airport. And the Galapagos knows currently 17 different species of Darwin's finches. And the trouble is they all look alike and they all show very confusing plumages. So the identification of these finches is actually the trouble. But after a few days, normally birders get the feeling of how to identify them. In this case, you're looking at a male. A male small ground finch is black, but it's a younger male because he's still a little bit streaky. The bill in this case is blackish. That's when they breed. But when they don't breed, they've got either a dusky bill or an orangey bill or a pinkish bill. And then females are again more streaky. Let's go to this is the small one. Let's go to the next one. This is the medium. You see it looks very different, but that's because this is also a younger male, very streaky, blackish bill, but you see that the size of the bill makes a difference. So these finches, they all look alike a lot. The bill size is important, the shape of the bill, the habitats, the distribution, all these factors. And the ground finches, they come in small, medium, and large. And this is the large one, large ground finch. Huge bill and yes, spectacular finch. This one is a little bit less common than the previous two. Another difficulty in terms of identification of Darwin finches is they hybridize. They do hybridize. So there are moments that you run into a finch and you're like, okay, is it a small or is it a medium? And then it could be the best answer to your question could be, let's just leave it as a small medium. Or, okay, this one over here, that's a medium large. I'm just not sure. And yeah, that actually brings fun to the identification of the Galapagos finches. Then we're still on the airport. Then the airport is a good place to look for this target. This beast is a Galapagos land iguana, and it's found throughout the archipelago, but fairly local. And the airport is actually a great place to see it. If you got some time, check the prickly pear cacti around the parking lot. They like to hide in the shade, like this guy. And here you have a close-up of it. It's really a beautiful animal. Well, then the next step is leaving Baltra. This is the Itabaca Channel, and this is typically where you either board your cruise ship or where you continue your trip on land. And in this case, we're going to cross with the ferry, and we're going to take a trip on land. And when you cross the ferry, typically you get to see your first Galapagos shearwaters crossing through the channel. This is a Galapagos breeding endemic. And then we continue our tour. This is what we're going to do right now. We're going onto Santa Cruz Island. We're going to visit the highlands, and then we'll end up in Puerto Ayora. So we take the bus into the highlands. There's just one main road, and here you can see how that looks like. You can see the lowlands are low, scrubby, arid. But then as you get into the highlands, you get to see forest. This is a popular stop. It's called Los Jamelos, the Twins. Here, there are two major sinkholes, a really nice site. And for us birders, the most important thing here is actually the forest that you see in the background. This forest is Scalesia forest. It's an endemic forest type to the Galapagos. And some also consider it the cloud forest of the Galapagos. It holds an incredible number of breeding land birds, warblers, finches, mockingbirds, flycatchers, and for example, this species, this is the Galapagos yellow warbler. This is one of the most common, if not the most common, songbird on the islands. And I'm showing you a picture of an immature juvenile bird, because that's the most confusing one. They look fairly variable. They can have almost completely white underparts. But in this case, the gray nape is quite distinct for this subspecies. Then in the forest up at Los Jamelos, you can find species like small tree finch. So this is a tree finch, a finch that's kind of pale, and you see it's got a fairly small bill, small rounded bill, distinct for a tree finch. And its behavior is also a little bit different from the ground finches. It kind of forages a little bit more like a warbler, let's say, hanging upside down. Then we have the large tree finch. This is actually one of the major targets in the highlands of Santa Cruz. This is a rare species, and it's only becoming rarer. It's a big chunky tree finch, in this case a male with a black hood, and it's got this big, heavy parrot-like bill. Then after Los Gemelos, we're going to the tortoise reserve, and it often happens that we see a tortoise before we actually get to the reserve, and we need to stop on the highway, and you know there's no traffic lights, but occasional tortoises, you'll have to stop for them. And then once you get to the tortoise reserve, yeah, all the attention goes to these incredible giants. The Galapagos Archipelago is actually named after these tortoises. Galapagos means giant tortoise. And this is a photo of a tortoise close up, stretching its neck. And yeah, if you see them like this, on a photo like this, it really reminds me of the science fiction movie E.T. Then the Galapagos barn owl. This is a species that is mainly found in those agricultural highlands. We usually have a few stakeouts for it. Some consider it a distinct species, but it's generally still considered an endemic subspecies. And then after that, we go to the Charles Darwin Research Station. And as you can see here, Andres and I, we're looking at a mockingbird. The birding is not only exciting, it's also very easy. This is true for most, if not all, birds in the Galapagos. They are just used to humans and don't show any fear. And here's the same species of mockingbird, but a bit closer up. So the Galapagos has currently four species of endemic mockingbirds. This is the most widespread one, occurring on many different islands, including many different subspecies. And then the Galapagos Flycatcher, that's also a fairly common endemic that you should see on most of the islands it occurs. It's also named large-billed flycatcher, which is kind of a little confusing because even though it's large-billed, it's the smallest of all the Myarchus flycatchers. So it's actually quite small for a Myarchus. And then this is the vegetarian finch. This is a good place to look for it is the Charles Darwin Research Station. It's a chunky finch, the biggest finch, very elongated, looks kind of small-headed with a big heavy bill, long tail. And this one can be kind of tricky to find, so always good if you see a vegetarian finch. Okay, so that was Santa Cruz, and now we're going to the next island, and that is San Salvador, or Santiago is the most commonly used name. and Bartolome. And the island is also called James. So 3 names for the same island. So here we arrive. You can see Bartolome Island is a small island in the background. And you can see these lava formations. This is very typical of the Galapagos Archipelago because it's all volcanic. And as you can see here, this is to illustrate actually, you need to bring good sturdy hiking boots if you go to the Galapagos, because of course you'll be doing a lot of hiking, and on the lava you just need good shoes. And this is the rope-like lava, and they call it Pawuwu. I probably pronounced it wrongly. I think it's a Hawaiian word, but yeah, it's beautiful. The landscapes are just like, look at this landscape. It's like you're actually being on the moon. And Darwin wrote something different about the Galapagos. This is what he wrote when Darwin arrived. Nothing could be less inviting. The country is comparable to what one might imagine the cultivated parts of the infernal regions to be. So that's what that's what Darwin thought when he first arrived. Nevertheless, this lava landscape, as you can see, holds a lot of unique birds. In this case, this is the lava heron, one of my favorites. It's a beautiful little heron, and yeah, they sometimes blend in right with the lava. You just walk by them without seeing them. And this individual's got a nice flamey, fiery colored eyes. And then another of my favorite endemics, the lava gull, endemic to the Galapagos. And this photo was actually taken with a lot of sunlight. Usually they look a little darker. There we go. This is more natural light. You can see it's a fairly dark lava colored gull. And it's actually the rarest gull in the world. The population is estimated between 150 to 300 adult individuals. Luckily, the population seems stable, but nevertheless, it's a really rare bird. The rarest gull in the world. Lava gull. And even the Darwin finches, they enjoy the bare, desolate landscapes. This is how you want them. This is a medium small together, and then identification suddenly becomes a bit easier when they line up next to each other. Okay, then we come to the blue-footed booby. This is, of course, one of the most iconic species in the Galapagos. And as you can see, they don't need much vegetation either. They just nest on bare ground. The bird on the right, that's the bird nesting. They make a little puddle, and then they beautifully make a nice white circle around it of scat, yeah. And that's where the nest is. And it's such a common bird that we see it all the time. And I have changed the name blue-footed booby into bluebie because it's so much easier to say, look, we've got a pair of bluebies right here. So this pair of bluebies, it's a male and a female, just to illustrate you the differences between the sexes. You can see the male in the foreground has a smaller iris, whereas the female in the background has a larger iris. But in fact, it's not that she's got a larger iris, but she's got an extra black ring in the eye, making the iris appear larger. And another difference between these two is the sound. So the male makes like a high-pitched whistling sound, like fee, 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 whereas the female makes a very different grunting, low grunting sound, like yeah. I've been terrible in imitating sounds, but it's just to give you an idea. Then the Galapagos penguin, yet another fantastic endemic. This is at Bartolome Island. This is a place where you can actually snorkel with penguins. One of the few places in the planet where you can snorkel with penguins. And it's just amazing. It's an amazing experience to look at the fish, and suddenly these penguins swim by. They're not shy at all. And this is actually the only species of penguin that is also found breeding north of the equator. So it's the only tropical penguin on the planet. Okay, so that was Santiago. Now we go to Genovesa. And Genovesa is a little bit further away. It's a real bird island. It takes quite a long trip by boat to get there. So we navigate, and while we navigate, we do some pelagic birding. And yes, this is one of the prize birds to see. This is the Galapagos petrel, an endemic Pterodroma petrel, a beauty. And yeah, if you're looking out, you'll definitely see it. I mean, usually not in large numbers, but you will see it if you keep an eye out. This is the ventral view. Here we have a dorsal view of the same species. And of course, apart from the Galapagos petrel, you'll see storm petrels. This is the most common storm petrel in the region. It's the white-vented storm petrel, also known as Elliott's storm petrel. And just to show, to illustrate how much still is to be discovered, imagine this is the most common seabird in the Galapagos, and we still have never found a nest of this species. We assume that it nests in the Galapagos, but the colonies have yet to be discovered. And some researchers have even done radio tracking on a few of these individuals, but so far they have not been able to find out where they nest. This is the wedge-rump storm petrel, also fairly common in the region. We do know where these birds nest, and you can see it's different. It's got different wing shape. It's got a large white rump patch. And together with the previous species, these two species are the most common storm petrels that you'll see. And both of them, they typically follow the boat. And then if you get lucky, you can also see the band-rump storm petrel. This is the third resident breeder. We do know where these guys nest. They only get to the colonies at night. So during the day, they're highly pelagic. But if you're lucky, you can actually see them as well. And yeah, structurally, it looks much more like a wedge-rump storm petrel, but it's got a much smaller rump patch, as you can see, compared to the previous one. And then on the way to Genovesa, if you get lucky, you can enjoy the dolphins. In this case, common bottlenose dolphin. They commonly bow ride the ship, and yeah, it's so fun to see these dolphins ride along. And then we just arrived at Genovesa. This is Darwin's Bay, and yeah, this is a place where we look for the endemics and the seabirds. And typically we are welcomed by this incredible gull. This is the swallow-tailed gull. It, especially on this picture, it looks kind of like an alien gull. It's got these huge eyes, and it has to do with, this is actually a nocturnal gull. So it forages at night, hence the big eyes. But during the daytime, you'll see them. So they're easy to see if you go to the right islands. And in flight, they're also beautiful. They show this very distinct pattern. Very reminiscent to Sabine's gull, the similar pattern in flight, though this gull is much larger than a Sabine's gull. And this is how the juveniles look like, very different. They've got this dark eye spot. Also beautiful. I mean, I love gulls. And the Galapagos has got two fantastic gulls, the lava gull and this swallow-tailed gull. And then, of course, more boobies. This is the red-footed booby. This is a brownish morph in landing mode. Good place for it, Genovesa. Another place in the archipelago is Punta of San Cristobal. And of course, this is Nazca booby. And yeah, like I said previously, all these birds are not scared of humans. And even though we need to keep our distance, you know, if you have a good lens, you can easily get this kind of headshots. And here another seabird, in this case a great frigate bird. You see the nice glossy green sheen on the back. The magnificent frigate bird is even more common, but that one typically has more bluish on the back. And this big red pouch both do show that, and it's just spectacular to see them, and on the ground and flying in the air. This is the Genovesa groundfinch. It's one of the endemic targets on the island. It used to be part of the sharp-beaked groundfinch complex, but actually genetic studies have shown that it's much closer related to small groundfinch. And this species is actually the smallest groundfinch of all the Darwin's finches. It's the smallest, and it's easy to see once you get to Genovesa. And the same holds for this species. This is the Genovesa cactus finch. Used to be named large cactus finch, but the large cactus finch has been split into two. And one of them is this one, the Genovesa cactus finch. And this is a male, black plumage, black bill. Then another attraction on Genovesa is the storm petrel colony. These are wedge-rumped storm petrels. They visit the colony during the daytime as well. And this is a shot of them. So they swarm in large numbers around, and they nest in those crevices. And they've got one big enemy, and that's this boy, the short-eared owl. So this is the Galapagos short-eared owl. It's a little darker than the continental race, and it specializes in catching these storm petrels. So that's what they do. You can see some storm petrels feathers there down in the corner, right-hand corner. That's what they do. They just hang out on the lava field and they snatch a storm petrel, and then they rest, and then they take another storm petrel, and then they chill again. Okay, so that was a quick trip to Genovesa. Now we continue our journey to Fernandina. And Fernandina Island, Punta Espinosa, that's a popular visitor site. And this is how Punta Espinosa looks like when you land there. And it's the land of the dragons, as I like to call them. These are not really dragons. These are marine iguanas, endemic to the Galapagos. And they're really widespread throughout the archipelago. They're especially common at Punta Espinosa, and they're also nice and big. They're large. And here you can get an idea of how many there are. I mean, they're literally all over. And they nest in this area, these marine iguanas. And there's one bird in particular that likes feeding those smaller nestlings, and that's the Galapagos Hawk. So this is an adult Galapagos hawk. It's the only diurnal raptor known for the Galapagos, and yeah, it's a beautiful hawk, and usually very approachable. Doesn't show any fear. Here you see one in flight, and its closest relative is in fact Swainson's hawk. So once far back in time, Swainson's hawk got lost and started its own little population on the Galapagos Islands, and it evolved into a distinct species now known as the Galapagos hawk. Then another star attraction at Punta Espinosa is the Flightless Cormorant. It's just like a how do you say, like a ship, like a submarine. That's like a submarine ship. It typically the whole body is underwater, and you only see the head and the neck out of the water, and those fantastic turquoise eyes. It's yeah, it's really a big cormorant. It's actually the biggest cormorant in the world, and Yeah, it's spectacular. This is a juvenile. A juvenile is more blackish than the adult. Also, the eye is darker, and you see the bill is blacker. And see those very thick thick legs. I mean, as thick as my wrist almost. It's really large. They really have got a lot of power. They're very powerful swimmers. Hence those thick legs. And if you get very lucky, but this is very rarely, you get to see them practicing flight. Yeah. Okay, so that was Punta Espinosa. Now we continue our journey through the Bolivar Channel, Hoppa, and we go to Isabella. That's where we go next, Isabella. And on the way, we enjoy beautiful landscapes as these. Here you have still a view of Fernandina. And here, more landscapes. And actually, that Bolivar Channel and this whole area, the waters are so rich. They are fed by the Cromwell Current. They're one of the richest waters in the world. And yeah, the pelagic birding is really, really good there. You get to see these large flocks of Galapagos shearwaters. Here you've got a flock, and if you see some of the birds, they have a rather dark blackish underwing, whereas others have a pale underwing. Studies still need to be done into these differences. Possibly we're looking here at different cryptic species, a dark wing type and a pale wing type. But yeah, it's one of those other mysteries that we still need to solve in the Galapagos. Here you have a pale wing type, showing nicely the underside of the wing. This is the more common type that you see in the Galapagos. And actually my friend and colleague Jonas Nielsen, he was the first to point this out. If you see right at the arrow, you see a little pale entry. We like to call it a pale thumbprint. And this is an ID mark which is distinct for this species. So that's pretty cool. He discovered that little detail there, that little opening, only on Galapagos shearwater. And in about 95% of the cases, they show this thumbprint. Even the dark-winged individuals show it. And then, apart from seabirds, if you get really lucky, we got really lucky. We got to see this shark, whale shark. Oh, you can see myself actually standing in the top corner on the boat. I was all nervous. I was thinking, shall I go in? Shall I? No, I'm not going in the water. The other tour leader, Andres, actually, he jumped into the water with his underwater camera, and we were watching. And suddenly the shark turned around and started swimming straight towards Andres. And I actually never seen anybody swim that fast back to the boat. But of course, this big shark is harmless, but it's so large. So it's kind of scary at the same time. Yeah, and we were lucky. We watched this beautiful animal for about 20 minutes and then continued. And you arrive at Puerto Villamil. This is a coastal town on the southern end of Isabella, and I really like it. It's a great base for bird watching. Always action in Isabella. This is when we arrive. Just get off the boat and hop. The biggest marine iguanas are waiting for you right there in town. Spectacular. And around town and in town, you've got all these wetlands, which they known as humedales, the Puerto Villamil. And in this case, you can see Matthew. He's taking pictures of the American flamingo. And Galapagos is indeed one of the best places in the world to get close-up shots of American flamingo. Yeah, it's considered a distinct subspecies by some. And I believe it definitely is a distinct race. It's genetically very different from the Caribbean population. And they've also shown differences in morphology. The Galapagos flamingo is smaller, and it's got ecological differences. Breeding behavior is also different. So maybe in the far future, we're looking at an endemic species, but for sure, a beautiful bird to see and to photograph. And then around town, you've got arid habitats. And as you can see on this photo, everybody's looking at something different. This is the Galapagos. Anywhere where you step, there is something cool or something new to see. So, for example, somebody tapped me on the back and said, "Dušan, have a look at this lava heron here." So we turn around and we see a lava heron eating a warbler, eating a Galapagos warbler. I mean, you don't see that every day. This is a juvenile plumage, actually, showing nicely the rufous dots on the coverts. And then from Puerto Villamil, from the lowlands, we make a trip up into the highlands, the only accessible volcano of Isabella, which is Sierra Negra. And this is where you have to do a little bit of exercise. It's a hike of about 45 minutes, but a beautiful hike into the highlands, onto the volcano. And once you get to the rim of the volcano, this is the view. If you're lucky, because the weather changes continuously. This is a good spot to look for the endemic Galapagos martin. They often forage around along the rim. But yeah, on other days, this picture was taken on a different trip. It's all foggy. It's all what they call guarua. Guarua is the local name of this sea mist that goes up into the highlands. And then it will be difficult to see any Galapagos martin. But in turn, on misty days, this bird is often a little easier. This is one of the sought-after endemics of the Galapagos. This is the Galapagos Rail. The tiny rail can be very shy, sometimes can be not shy at all. It's a neat, really neat endemic. We typically always get it on a trip, but you really have to work for it. You need to know the spots. And in this case, the bird really showed well. It had a little chick, and we watched it beautifully. And yeah, sometimes they don't show any fear at all. Well, in the same area, you can find the little Vermilion Flycatcher. This is nowadays considered a different species from the continental Vermilion Flycatcher. First of all, it's smaller. And second, the female plumage is quite different. And third, the song is also very different. And genetically, it's very different. This is quite a rare target, just like the rail. It's a bird that you can miss, actually. It's not common. You really have to look out for it. And it's in decline. Philornis downsy, the word down there, that's the Latin name of a parasitic fruit fly, which is currently causing a lot of troubles in the Galapagos. This fruit fly, instead of feeding on fruits, it quickly evolved and started feeding on the nestlings of breeding songbirds, including this little Vermilion Flycatcher. And well, luckily, the Charles Darwin Foundation and the researchers in the Galapagos National Park, they're doing their best. They're doing a lot of research on this fruit fly, and they're really trying to control the situation. But it's yeah, it's tough. So that's there we go. This fruit fly unfortunately also affects all these Darwin finches. In this case, Woodpecker Finch. This is really a unique endemic. I really like this bird, not because of the plumage, because honestly, it's kind of a pretty boring little gray bird. But okay, but behaviorally, it's very interesting because first of all, it behaves like a nuthatch, like a little wood creeper-like thing. It creeps up and down branches. And second, it's a very smart little bird. It uses tools. So in this case, it's a cactus spine, and it uses the tools to go into cavities and take out insect larvae. So, and that makes it actually very unique. Such a small bird using tools. Yeah. Okay, so this was Isabella, and now we continue on to Floreana Island. And Floreana Island, typically when you arrive, you make a trip to the highlands of Floreana, and the only way of transport is a chiva. And the chiva is, in this case, this truck. For the Ecuadorians and Colombians that are watching right now, they will recognize this chiva, because also on the mainland we use it. But yeah, it's a wonderful way of transport, because the fresh air blows in, and it can be a little bumpy though. And then once you get to the highlands, this is the major target of Floreana in the highlands. It's the medium tree finch. It is critically endangered, but in fact, it's not. Once you get to the highlands, it's not really rare. Identification can be challenging. The key is actually try to find birds which as thick, large bills as possible. The bigger and the more parrot-like the bill, the better. Because what happens is on the island, medium tree finch hybridizes with small tree finch. So you have a hybrid, and then you can say, okay, is this a medium tree finch, or is it something in between? So if you see something with a really big bill, you can be sure that's very likely a pure medium tree finch. And the best way, like this bird, the best way is to get a color-banded individual, and then you email Sonja Kleindorfer or any of the other researchers, and they'll give you the genetic makeup of the individual, and then you know I've got a real medium tree finch. Okay, this is another bird that you can run into up in the highlands. It's widespread throughout the Galapagos, the dark-billed cuckoo. It's not an endemic either, but it's a cool bird to see, but they can be rather shy. So any cuckoo that you see is a good cuckoo. And then another marine iguana, and this one is from Floreana, and they just suddenly show spectacular colors. I mean, this is not Photoshopped. These are original colors of the marine iguana that I encountered on Floreana. And then next to Floreana, there is a little island which is called Champion Islet, and this is Champion. And there is a very rare bird inhabits this very small island. It's one of the rarest birds of the Galapagos. And now we're going to have a look. Ho, ho, ho. Yes, here we have, this is actually a plate of the new field guide that I'll be showing you at the end of this talk. This is the Floreana mockingbird, and if you have a look at the range map, you can see where it occurs. Very locally, only on those two little satellite islands. It's also known as the Charles mockingbird. This was actually one of the first mockingbirds that Charles Darwin collected. And when Charles collected this bird, it was still on the mainland. But with the introduction of cats and rats, the bird very likely disappeared from the mainland and survived on these small rocks. And it is actually these mockingbirds who gave Darwin the first spark about his theory of evolution, because Darwin had these mockingbirds and he was thinking like, oh, I've got the Charles mockingbird here, and next door island, so close by, I've got a different mockingbird. How is that possible? So that's where this bird kind of woke up Charles Darwin and makes it an extra special bird, Floreana mockingbird. And we are always very excited. You can't land on the island. You can only look from a distance with a boat. And when you've got the permission to go a bit closer with the boat, you see these cacti like this in a very distance. And then it's like, okay, who sees a mockingbird? Who sees a mockingbird? And then if you are really lucky, here right where the circle is, you can see right on top there is a mockingbird. You'll probably say that you don't believe me, but trust me, there's a mockingbird on top of that cactus. And this is what they look like close up. And on Champion Island, you'll see most of them, if not all of them, are color banded, because the researchers are yeah, they are monitoring the population continuously. Well, then we are continuing our tour. Next island is Española, also one of my favorite islands. And this is the visitor point where everybody goes. It's called Punta Suárez. And here we see Adam. Adam is trying to do some macro photography on the Española mockingbird. And this is what it looks like, the Española mockingbird, made a macro photography. It's actually the largest of the endemic mockingbirds, and it's got the heaviest bill, nice, slightly decurved. And this mockingbird can be pretty aggressive. They go for water bottles. They recognize a water bottle, and they'll try to tap on the cap. And as water in the island is scarce, fresh water. And what they actually do, some individuals actually drink blood. They drink blood of the seabirds and of the marine iguanas. So it's kind of a vampire mockingbird. This is another endemic on the island. It's the Española cactus finch. If you remember at the start of the tour, we had the Genovesa cactus finch. Well, there used to be a single species, large cactus finch, and now it's a separate species, Española cactus finch. And this finch is actually rather a ground finch than a cactus finch. It's not much tied to cacti at all on the island. And there's not too many cacti on the island. There is, but. And then the lava lizard. I haven't shown you any lava lizard yet, this whole journey. But yeah, each island has its own different lava lizards. These are much smaller than the marine iguanas. And some exhibit fantastic colors, like this Española lava lizard. And of course, the lava lizard is, again, a favorite snack of the Galapagos hawk. This is a juvenile Galapagos hawk, also on Española. Yeah. And then here we've got landscape. The seabirds of Española, they are on the cliffs. Here you got a landscape picture. This is my friend Jörn next to me. And you can see the Nazca pubis. They posed next to us for the picture. And when you walk around the cliffs, you have a good chance of seeing these beautiful red-billed tropic birds hanging in the wind right above your head. Española is a good spot for them. And then, of course, the star bird of Española is the waved albatross, also known as the Galapagos albatross. It's like an airplane flying in, as you can see. And yeah, these are three adults together landing and interacting when they breed on the lava plateau there. Beautiful animals. Here one closer up calling. And almost the entire world population breeds on this island. So there's only maybe 4 pairs or so that nest on a small island off mainland Ecuador, Isla de la Plata. But otherwise, it's a Galapagos endemic. And beautiful in flight as well, when you have them soaring by or overhead. And when they nest, this is a chick Galapagos albatross, waved albatross. They breed typically from April to December. So, I mean, they occur throughout the year in the Galapagos, but when they're not breeding, you're more likely to see them only at sea. And actually, some birds wander away pretty far. They wander to the Humboldt Current in Peru, and some even reach Chile. But yeah, if you visit Española within these months, you have a very good chance to see them on the ground. Okay, then the last island of the trip is another important island. That's San Cristobal. That's also going to be the end of our virtual tour. San Cristobal actually has an airport, so you can actually fly in or fly out from San Cristobal as well. And it's got one main endemic. That's the sun crystal mockingbird. And this bird is fairly easy to find, even at the outskirts of town. This is taken at the interpretation center, just at the edge of town, this photo. And what makes sun cristobal interesting, there's quite a few birds that are kind of unique. This is a gray warbler finch. Gray warbler finch is widespread in the Galapagos, but typically inhabits arid lowlands, while this subspecies luteola, is on sun cristobal typically found in the humid highlands. And it looks also kind of a little bit of different, so there's a good chance that with some more research, this might be a split. Let's call it the sun cristobal warbler finch. And the same holds for the woodpecker finch. The endemic race on the island is Striati pecta. It's much more streaked and darker, also streaky on the back. And actually some of the males develop a dark hood. Well, all these details on subspecies and distributions, etc., all of these you can find in the new field guide, which I'm going to present right now. Here we go. I'm very proud to present this, this brand new book, which is going to come out in December, hopefully. It's by Lynx Editions and BirdLife International. And for 2 years, I've been working on this book with my partner in crime, Jonas Nielsen. And yeah, finally this project is nearing to the end. It's almost to the printers. And I would like to thank 2 people in particular for this project. First person is Guy Kirwan. Guy has been a project coordinator of this book, and he has been just incredible in helping out, revising all the text and taking out all the small little mistakes. So thanks. And then the second person is Arnaud Bonnen Barfool. Arnaud Bonnen Barfool. He is the main project coordinator of this book. And Arnaud and I have been actually for the last 2 years almost in daily contact working on this book. So thank you, Arnaud, for all your help. And then last but not least, I want to thank my wife, Maria Lorena Cordova Saeteros, for coping with this very busy project and for always your continuous support on all my birding projects. And then just quick, what's inside the book. This book describes 170 confirmed bird species for the Galapagos. As I said previously, it's got 65 breeding residents, of which 50% resident endemics, another 12 endemic bird subspecies, plus 77 extra hypothetical and potential species. So what's a hypothetical species? A hypothetical species is a bird that has been reported in Galapagos, but Jonas and I, we were unable to fully corroborate this record. So we rather put it as a hypothetical, as there was no documentation, or it was complex to identify. And potential species are species that we expect that will very likely show up in the future. So Galapagos is a place where you can still discover a lot. Plus, apart from the birds, we described 41 mammal species. Not so many mammals in this presentation because most of the mammals are actually citations, whales and dolphins, etc. 6 endemic mammals, and the book covers 660 full-color illustrations. And now a quick peek inside. Here we've got the mockingbird page. You can see the different mockingbirds with the range maps. You can see the little block, they call that the QNR code. You can scan that with your cell phone, and then you can get all this data right on your phone. So it's kind of modern. Here we go. This is the finches, the plates of the finches. Just one of the pages. There's many more. And the last one here are some mammals. The killer whale, the common dolphin, the Fraser's dolphin. This is just to get you a little idea of the inside of the book. And then I want to thank you all for being part of this tour. And I see Keith, I think it's time for the questions and answers. Thank you. Thank you all.
Oh, thank you so
Fantastic,
much.
Jason. Yeah, we're almost there. Nikki's just going to take it away. Just give us some insight into what's going to be coming up next week with Adam. But yeah, once she's done, can't wait to do a little bit of question and answers with Dušan. We've got a bunch of questions that have come through. Yeah.
Really, really fantastic, Dušan. I think I had a smile on the whole time. And you're so modest. I don't think once you mentioned that all those photos are actually your photos that you've taken. So yeah, thank you. So before we go into Q&A, George also sent us a message in the chat box to remind us that Dušan also planned and led the 4-person expedition that identified more species of birds in one day, 431 species than ever before in history. So Dušan is currently the world record holder that was set in Ecuador. So the link with this recording of the webinar will be emailed to you within the next 24 to 48 hours. And next week, Rockjumper's founder, Adam Riley, will showcase some of his favorite bird photos from the 100 countries and 8,000 bird species he has seen, coupled with the stories of his adventures in finding these beautiful, but often elusive and sadly endangered feathered creatures. The webinars in this series are all being offered free of charge. Should you, however, wish to donate towards our tour leaders, our GoFundMe donation link has been sent in your chat box. Thank you for your time and some Q&A now. Over to you, Keith.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you so much, Nikki, and yeah, Dušan. Very agree with Nikki completely. I mean, it was a smile on the face the whole time, which is a beautiful virtual tour. And we've had, yeah, you clearly got a lot of fans out there as well. There's an awful lot of messages coming through. Some that are almost essays, and some folks that are looking forward to traveling with you in the future as well. So it's wonderful to read. Thank you for all the comments, everyone. Right, into Q&A. What is a few people asking about mangrove finch? What's the current status of the mangrove finch, and any chance of actually encountering it on a tour to the Galapagos?
Very good question. Very good question. And I'm first of all, I'm very happy of a little bit of interaction, because you know I've been talking now for quite a long time, and finally I can get some interaction. Yes, so mangrove finch is absolutely the rarest bird in the Galapagos. It's almost extinct, unfortunately. Charles Darwin Foundation researchers, they're doing their best to save it from extinction. Francesca Cunningham and Birgit Wessel and Michael Dvorak, they're involved. Currently, the mangrove finch is only known from 2 little spots in the far northwest of Isabela. It's Playa Tortuga Negra and Caleta Black. There's mangrove patches. The finches are still there, but there is no access. So the only way to get access to that site is through research. But for tourists, it's nearly impossible to see. However, some colleagues have seen it at Punta Espinosa. Remember when we were in Fernandina, there's some small mangrove patches there. People have reported it from there, so it can be that some floaters show up there, some young birds. Plus, I think personally, the Tagus Cove, which is a visitor site a little bit further south, Tagus Cove is also a spot to look for them, because Francesca has been putting up radio transmitters on these mangrove finches, and they do wander around a little bit. So if you get to Tagus Cove, definitely check all those finches. And if you see something that looks like a mangrove finch, it can actually really be a mangrove finch. So yeah, that's my answer. I hope I hope this is good. Yeah.
No, fascinating, Dušan. Really fascinating. Yeah, I mean, just from the little that I know about it, I mean, it originally was found in Fernandina, right? And
yeah, or historically it was at Fernandina, but yeah, I mean, they have done many monitorings, and the only resident populations are currently known from that little spot in the northwest. There used to be a population as well in the southeast in Cartago, but I think 10 years ago they still found a few birds, but the recent status of that population is actually unknown. So yeah, very rare bird, very rare.
Yeah, it's, as you say, very, very rare bird. Okay, excellent. Just a little bit about the book now.
Yeah.
When is it going to be available? And will it be available on Amazon?
I'm not sure. It will hopefully come out in December. It's
Fantastic.
really at the final stages now. I mean, it's always at the book. Projects takes longer than you expect, but yeah, let's open December. If not December, the earliest it will be January. It's by Lynx Editions, so if you want to get it, you can get it through their website, I'm sure. But I believe that that they also work with Amazon. But I'm not sure if Amazon.com will have it. But Lynx will definitely ship the book throughout the whole world, so it will be easy to get online.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
A few questions now, just sort of comparing the land-based versus the cruise-based trips, and I guess folks are just trying to get their heads around, you know, some of those. You spoke a little bit earlier on when you started about some of the positives, you know, and negatives, you know, for each of the trips. Tracy here is just wondering, land-based versus cruise-based, which type of tour allows for more snorkeling?
Again, a good question. I think they are kind of comparable, Tracy. I think both on the cruises you'll do a lot of snorkeling, but actually on our land-based tours we do snorkeling as well. Maybe on the cruise you'll possibly do a little bit more snorkeling because you visit remoter visitor sites, and typically per day you have one land-based visit and then you do one snorkeling excursion. Whereas on the land-based tour, if I count, we'll do 3 or 4 snorkeling. So probably for snorkeling, the cruise is slightly more snorkeling, but you know, both trips cover snorkeling, and we can in advance we can always try to schedule in a little bit more snorkeling, and then an advantage of the land-based tours. Let's say if you're really so keen of a snorkeler. You could stay in Puerto Villamil in the town and say, okay, I'm skipping the highland stuff. I just want to snorkel all day here, just in town. That's what a lot of tourists as well do. They just snorkel just right out on the beach, and yeah, it's awesome. So yeah.
Fantastic that you've got those sort of options around as well that you can play with a little bit.
Yeah,
that's great. Any other species of albatross possible on the Galapagos? Is it just way away?
We have only one confirmed species, which is the wave albatross. In the book, we've got some hypothetical species. So there is 1 or 2 records of black-browed albatross. There's a record of which is it black-footed albatross, which is from the north. An historical record as well. Like in 1900s, a dark albatross was observed on Hispaniola, all black one, so it's likely could have been that. And there is even one site record of one of the larger albatrosses, the wandering royal complex, but never confirmed to species. But these are all major vagrants, so any other albatross in the Galapagos would actually be an addition to the Galapagos list. Yeah.
Okay. Great stuff, Dušan. So again, just looking at the land-based. So John's just asking, do both the land-based tour and the cruise target all the endemics? I mean, obviously, we know we do miss birds like Mangrove Finch, but he's just asking because it looks like the land-based tour goes to a few, you know, fewer islands.
Yeah,
Does the one target more endemics than the other?
Very, very good point. So the cruise will get you most endemics, and the simple difference is our cruise visits Genovesa, which got the 2 endemic finches, the Genovesa ground finch and the Genovesa cactus finch. Well, those two endemics you won't get on a land-based tour, because to date they still don't offer land-based trips to that island. So in that case, endemics wise, a cruise will get you more because you add those two. However, in a land-based tour, you do have possibly a little bit more chance to target difficult endemics like that Vermilion Flycatcher, like the Galapagos Rail. So overall, our land-based tour and the cruise have very similar in overlap, except for Genovesa. And then, right. Yeah, so that's, hopefully this is a good answer to the question. Mm-hmm. But otherwise they're similar. Otherwise they're similar in number of endemics. Mm-hmm.
Sure. Excellent. Yeah. Thanks, Dušan. I think that's answered really well. Joni's just asking here, if you don't do well on boats, is the land-based option the best option then? And also, is there a better time of the year to avoid rough seas?
Yeah, two good questions. Two good questions. Yes, I think the land-based is obviously better for people that really have troubles on boats, because of course you'll still be on a boat, but certain day trips you could actually even say, okay, I rather stay in town than going on the boat right now. And it all depends also on the water. If there's calm waters, you know, you're only 3 hours max you'll be on the boat. You know, on the other hand, you'll still be on the water. So it's not a solution to the problem, but it's not the entire trip on a boat. And sleeping on a boat is different than sleeping on land. Yeah, the calm, typically the months that are the roughest is when the austral kind of winter kicks in. This is when the southern Humboldt current winds come in. And that's typically between, let's say, May and October, November. So that's when the water is kind of choppy, and it can be kind of rough. And September is therefore also one of the lowest season months in Galapagos generally, because of the rough seas and the colder water. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Great stuff. And how does that tie in? I mean, is that also then the part of the best time to go to the Galapagos? Would that tie in together with the better waters, or is there some?
Well, it again depends a little bit on what you look for. If you're looking for austral migrants and vagrants blown in from the south, then obviously those choppier conditions are much better for pelagic birding. I mean, I enjoy those. But yeah, no, if you want warmer and calmer weathers, this is when the Panama current brings in the warmer water. Yeah, that's definitely between, let's say, between November and April will be warmer, and that's better for snorkeling, because you know it's more pleasant to snorkel in warm water. However, even during the coldest seasons we do snorkeling, because you put on a wetsuit, you jump in, and once you see those cormorants and penguins around you, I mean, you don't care anymore if the water is cold or warm. You just stay in the water as long as possible. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, wetsuits do well. I mean, that's what we do here in the Cape. You know, don't get into the Cape water without a wetsuit on. Good stuff. Do both the land-based and boat tours have a chance at Flightless Cormorant?
Our tours, the itineraries that we offer, yes. Both visit Western Isabella, and yes, we'll get on both type of Rockjumper trips the cormorant. It's a high-profile target. It's nowadays impossible to come back to the previous question. It's impossible to get all the endemics. I mean, you even got some endemics up in the far northern islands, like the vampire finch. Nobody gets that bird except for people that do a scuba diving trip. But you know, both of our tours do get, let's say, 80 to 90% of all endemics we do get, and iconic birds like flightless cormorant are very important for boat trips, and we get them. I mean, The flightless cormorant is actually one of the most sight-faithful birds in the Galapagos. They typically don't go further than 1 or 2 kilometers away from their nest site. They're just highly sedentary. Yeah.
Excellent. Just over here, so the Vermilion Flycatcher on the Galapagos. Do you get both? Do you get Vermilion Flycatcher and the little Vermilion at all?
Yeah, sorry, perhaps for confusion. Good question, and I haven't mentioned it in the talk. So the Galapagos actually has 2 endemic Vermilion Flycatchers. That's the little Vermilion Flycatcher, also known as Darwin Flycatcher, and then the least Vermilion Flycatcher, the sun crystal ball Flycatcher, Vermilion Fly. And the last one, the latter one, the least, is now officially considered extinct by BirdLife International. It used to inhabit sun crystal ball until the early 80s, and yeah, most of us think it's extinct. However, we do include it in the field guide because there is some really exciting recent observations, as recent as 2016, of a farmer out on San Cristobal who apparently photographed, I've seen the photo, a small photo though, it was taken with a cell phone, of a male Vermilion Flycatcher. And the photo is apparently taken on San Cristobal, which means that this extremely rare, possibly extinct bird still inhabits San Cristobal. So one of the ideas I had was going out there and look for it. So that's on my radar. But otherwise, all the other islands is just one race, and that's the little Vermilion Flycatcher, endemic to the Galapagos. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. Wow. Wonderful insight there, Dušan. And thanks for. I mean, it really covers it really nicely. Thanks for that. Back to snorkeling again. Is it possible to snorkel with the flightless cormorants and marine iguanas in the Galapagos?
Yes, definitely. I mean, we have one important rule which I have forgot to mention in Galapagos is it's the 2-meter distance rule, and especially after this year, I think all of us have a good experience now on social distancing. But yeah, this 2-meter rule is throughout the archipelago already for years. You can't get within wildlife more than 2 meters. That's the guideline. And of course, when you snorkel, sometimes those animals come very close. And what we normally do is we go to a Tagus Cove, for example, which is a nice secluded bay. And from there, you snorkel and you snorkel along the edges. You see all kind of fish and Galapagos sea lions. They come and circle all around you and start playing with you. And then if you get lucky, indeed, there's suddenly a cormorant swimming underneath, or marine iguanas. I remember Priscilla, 2 years ago, we were snorkeling in a spot like that, and she had these orange flippers. And suddenly this Galapagos flightless cormorant was pecking on her flippers, and we're watching, we're like, whoa. So wow. yeah, you definitely get to see them underwater. Yeah.
Very cool.
As well, yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, amazing experience. Really amazing experience.
Yeah.
Excellent. Let's have a look over here. So this is this is one that we could probably chat about for a while in a way, because it involves the environment and conservation to some degree. And a couple of people have brought it up and just asking about, I guess, the fear as well of, as they put it here, being the final straw tourist that might destroy the wonders of the Galapagos, and just the concern around that about conservation on the Galapagos, and essentially just asking which tour is the more environmentally conservative trip to take. So from that point of view, there's also a bit of a mention about the land-based tours themselves potentially bringing in more infrastructure, employees, increased population pressure that's associated with that. What are your thoughts between the two, sort of cruises versus land-based? And I guess it's something that's been discussed with the Galapagos.
Yeah, no, this This is a very good question, and yeah, like you say, we can go very deep in it. But I think the most important answer to this question is conservation and control on the Galapagos is highly organized. So it doesn't matter if you take a cruise or a land-based trip. First of all, 97% of the entire archipelago is national park. So it's all protected. You are not allowed to go off trail. You're not allowed to litter. You're always accompanied by local guides. They all, you know, are professionals. They follow very nicely. As soon as something drops out of your bag, they'll pick it up. I mean, it's highly organized. The National Park Services take conservation on the islands extremely serious because, of course, in history, especially in the highlands, a lot of introduced plants and things have already caused so many problems. So the impact of tourism actually on the islands is in that way highly controlled. I don't think there's a big difference of doing a land-based or a cruise. I mean, both use fuel from an environmental perspective. In both cases, you use fuel. The infrastructures, Galapagos tends to stay small. It's not that it's not like kind of Hawaii. I mean, I don't know Hawaii. I haven't been there myself, but it's not like there's skyscrapers everywhere. There's a McDonald's around the corner. No, it's definitely not like that. Galapagos actually already for a long time has rules that foreigners, even Ecuadorians, are not allowed to live on the islands. You are only allowed to live on the Galapagos if you're born there or if you're married to a Galapagueño. So in that way, the population is also controlled. And yeah, I think they're doing a great job on Galapagos. So don't be afraid that it will be impacting negatively the conservation of the area. Actually, I would say Galapagos needs tourism because it brings in so much money that they actually can do stronger conservation in the region. That's my answer.
Thanks, Dušan. Yeah, I mean, it's one that we could probably spend half an hour on and do an entire,
entire presentation on.
Yeah, exactly. We could go very, very deep on that sort of subject. But no, I think your answer covers it really nicely and gives a nice perspective on it. Thank you for that. Just quickly, Rochelle's asking me, only got 1 week to spend on the Galapagos with the goal of seeing birds and other wildlife. What sort of itinerary would you say is achievable to see multiple islands? I mean, I guess most islands if you only have a week. And then associated with that, for the trip that you've just described, how long is that trip?
Okay, very good question. So I'll answer the second question first. So both our cruise and our land-based trips are actually around 10 days because you need at least 10 days to get all those endemics. Our tours are specifically for birding, and we want to get as many endemics as we can. That's why they're 10 days. So if you want to do a slightly shorter trip of 7 days, that means you will have to give up on a few islands. And then if you want a shorter trip, I definitely recommend Santa Cruz Island and Isabela Island. And there is actually also regular connection between those two. And you could actually add Floreana to it and San Cristobal. So if you take those 4 islands, you'll definitely get a really good chunk of all those endemics. You will have to make, for example, Flightless Cormorant. When you're in Puerto Villamil, you'll have to make day trips to see the cormorant up on the west side. But yeah, an itinerary like that, shorter, would be the most powerful. Try to get the big islands with access to the highlands. And yeah, you'll probably have to skip on an island like Genovesa, unless you choose to do a short trip cruise, including Genovesa. So yeah, you got all these possibilities, and I suggest if people want to figure out what itinerary is best for them, they can after the talk they can just send me an email or a Skype meeting. I'm very happy to tell them more about what options there are.
Fantastic, Dušan. Yeah, Really appreciate your insight on that. That's fantastic. So yeah, we're getting towards the 90-minute mark all in here. Thanks to, we've still got a lot of people that are hanging on here for the Q&A. So thanks to those who are sticking around. We've got time for just 2 more questions. Just a quick one. Ian's asking, any idea what the cost of the book's going to be?
The cost of the book? Good question. Again, that's not. I don't know anything of that. I just made the contents. But if I look at the other field guides of that same BirdLife International series, as it is a thin book, I guess because it's rather thin, probably the price goes a bit down. So yeah, I really don't know. Maybe let's say around $40, something like that. I mean, I might be wrong, but yeah, I actually don't know. But that's what I expect, maybe. Just a ballpark.
Sure. That's great. And then final question, Tristan's asking here, just is absolutely amazing, Dušan. Thank you so much. What is the most unlikely or oddest species that you have seen in the Galapagos?
Oof, yeah, that is a good question. There's actually too many weird things have happened. Let me quickly go through my memory. I've done so many trips that, you know, it goes like this. But I actually think the memory that I actually described in this talk about the whale shark and Andres swimming away for it, and I was ready to either jump in or not jump in. I think that was really a moment of much excitement, and it was out of the blue. We didn't expect a whale shark. We were just navigating, and suddenly this 20-meter shark was right there next to our boat. I mean, the shark was literally bigger than our boat. And some of us were thinking, like, we have to get out of here because the shark is going to turn over our boat. And I mean, yes, I would say that was one of the most memorable moments.
Crazy. Fantastic. Yeah, Dušan, very, very memorable virtual tour that. Yeah, special times, the Galapagos. Wow, it's always felt very, very exotic and down here in the far tip of Africa. But yeah, maybe one day. But yeah,
definitely. You guys have to come. You guys have to come over. Yeah.
One day when we get big, Nikki.
One day. Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Dušan. Thank you again to everyone joining us today, and we look forward to you joining us next week. So from all of us from the Rockjumper team, cheers for today. Thank you.
Ciao, ciao.